Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jeffrey. Today I'm going to be talking about lipids. Lipids are going to have usually a polar head area and a non-polar tail area, and they're going to be separated into three major categories. The first of which is going to be your simple lipids. So your simple lipids are going to be like the fat that you store. So it's going to be triacylglycerol, or it's going to be your cholesterol. Okay, you guys know both of these. Your triacylglycerol has a glycerol backbone, and your fatty acid tails. Okay, three fatty acid tails. All right, and your cholesterol is going to have an OH group poking out. That's going to be your polar group, and then it's going to have those characteristic four fused rings. Okay, nonpolar rings. And moving on to the second category, which is going to be called your derived lipids. These are going to be your fatty acids. Okay, so for fatty acids, they actually come in all these different forms. They can come in a saturated form, which is going to be having no double bonds whatsoever. They're going to be mono unsaturated, which is going to be a mono unsaturation, which is going to be one double bond, or they can have multiple double bonds, which we refer to as polyunsaturated. Okay, so I'm just going to be talking briefly about all of these different fatty acids that you would typically have to know, because these are the most common in your body. So for your saturated fatty acids, you're going to have two. One is going to be your palmitic acid, and the second one is going to be called your stearic acid. Okay, and your palmitic fatty acid is the only difference between your palmitic and your stearic is going to be the number of carbons. So your palmitic is going to have 16 carbons, your stearic is going to have 18 carbons. Now remember that there are no double bonds. So that's it for your saturated fatty acid. For your mono unsaturated, you're going to have this thing called oleic acid. Okay, so what oleic acid is, it's going to have the same number of carbons as your stearic acid, except you're going to have one double bond. Okay, so this is referring to the number of carbons. This is going to refer to your number of double bonds. Okay. So now moving on to polyunsaturated, you're going to have two major different types. Okay. So polyunsaturated is going to be separated into your omega-3 fatty acids and your omega-6 fatty acids. Now you probably heard of these quite a bit, and basically your omega-3 is going to be your alpha linolenic acid. Okay, linolenic acid, and then your omega-6 is just going to be called your linoic acid. All right. So linoic acid. All right. Sorry, I had to double check real quick there to see if I was pronouncing it right. Now there's going to be several derivatives. Okay, so your alpha linolenic acid is going to have two derivatives. That first one is going to give you eicosahexanoic acid, pentanoic acid. I'm so sorry, pentanoic acid. Basically, what it means is eicosa means 20, and penta refers to the number of double bonds. So pentanoic acid is going to have five double bonds in it. Okay, and then your second derivative is going to be this thing called DHA, which is going to be called, which refers to docosahexanoic acid, because now we've introduced a second double bond. So before it was 25, right? So 20 carbons and 5 double bonds. Now we're actually at 22 and 6 double bonds. So your DHA is going to give you the most membrane fluidity, okay? Because it has the most double bonds. Now, moving to your linoleic acid, which is your omega-6, you're going to have one derivative that you really have to know. It's going to be called your arachidonic acid, okay? And essentially, the omega-3 and omega-6 differ in where the double bond is. But this is going to have 20 carbons and 4 double bonds. Okay, So, all right. Now moving on to your phospholipids. Your phospholipids are actually going to be very complex. There's going to be a lot of different phospholipids. There's actually 7 in total. I'm only going to touch on 2 in particular. So one I wanted to talk about was your glycerol phospholipid, which is just going to be your phospholipid plus a sugar. And then there are many different phospholipids, such as phosphatidylethanolamine, phosphatidylserine, phosphatidylinositol, your cardiolipin. Cardiolipin is going to be on your inner membrane of your mitochondria. So if we're going to test for cell death, you would have like an anti-cardiolipin antibody, to attach itself to that cardiolipin so that you can actually see which cells are dying, okay? And then you're going to have this thing called DPPC, which is called dipalmital. You're going to have this thing called DPPC, which is dipalmitol phosphatidylcholine, and basically that is going to be your surfactant in your lungs. Okay, so that's extremely important to know, and you just have to know that it's a phospholipid, in particular a phosphatidylcholine. Okay, now I'm going to be talking in particular about your glycerol phospholipids. There's going to be 4 types, and I wanted to elaborate on them. Okay, so the first one is going to be your cerebroside. And that is going to be, so all phospholipids have this thing, glycerol phospholipids have this thing called ceramide, okay? So that's going to be present in all of them. So it's going to have your ceramide plus your monosaccharide, okay? Monosaccharide, all right. So how I remember this is this O in cerebral corresponds with the O in monosaccharide. And then number 2 is going to be your sulfatide, okay? And how I like to remember this is going to be the same thing, your ceramide plus your monosaccharide from on top plus a sulfate group. And the sulfate group is obviously going to correlate with that sulfatide, all right? Now, going to be global side. Third thing is going to be global side. Is basically going to be a ceramide plus a oligosaccharide. Now, how I like to remember this is, global corresponds with like global. So I think like Mr. Worldwide has had a lot of different experiences, which correlates with oligo. So that's how I remember ceramide and oligosaccharide, okay? And then number 4 is going to be your ganglioside. So this is extremely important because these are going to line your neurons, actually, and help with those action potentials. So it's going to be a ceramide plus an oligosaccharide because neurons are very complex, and because they're so complex, they actually have this extra thing called an NANA. Okay, so that's another molecule that's going to be with your glycerol phospholipids, and that's going to compose of your ganglioside, which is extremely important. So yeah, I hope that this video has been helpful. I hope that you guys learned something from this, and this is just going to be your basic foundations on lipids. All right.